Hello there, HP Golfer back with you. This time I'm not going to talk about golf or working out or anything like that, but I am going to discuss something that does have to do with your health, at least mine in particular. I want to talk to you about Chantix. It's the prescription drug for smoking cessation. There's the package. I think in Europe it's called Chantix, but it's the same drug. I wanted to give my 2 cents because before I asked my doctor for it, I actually went on YouTube and searched for it, and lo and behold, a bunch of different people were reviewing it and how it worked and its effects, etc., etc. So I wanted to give you my spin on it. And in that regard, I'm a little bit different than maybe your average person because I do have a disability, cerebral palsy, and the way cigarettes and nicotine worked on my system, because my disability affects my nervous system, was one where when I would have that first cigarette the day, I would become loose, more mobile, ambulatory. So what would happen to me whenever I would try to quit cold turkey would be within 24, especially 48 hours after that final cigarette. The days waking up were positively awful, where I would get real stiff, spastic, lock up, to the point where I was virtually unable to move. So that's not very pleasant. And I have to admit, and this is what a lot of people say about this drug, Chantix, is that you can smoke the first week that you're on it. Reason being is the first week you step up your dosage. In terms of the first week box, which is this color, versus second week box, which is this color, the designation is 5 milligrams, 0.5 milligrams. Whereas the second week you bump up to 1 milligram. And what happens is during the first week, first 3 days, you take 1/2 milligram pill a day, and then basically the last 4 days of that 7-day period, you take a 1/2 milligram twice a day. Then all of a sudden, when you get to your second week, which is also your quit day, once you're off the green box, you get onto the blue box where you stop smoking completely, and they tell you to take 1 milligram in the morning and 1 milligram at night. Now I was looking at a lot of different reviews, and a lot of the people basically had the same consensus, where they found when they upped the dosage after that first week to the 2 milligrams per day, it affected them in very adverse ways. Now, I'll get to what I did in a moment. But let me back up a step. When I decided to stop smoking, I had a definite timeline and a plan. When I say that, I was traveling down to Atlanta, Georgia for a Philadelphia Eagles road game with a bunch of non-smokers. And on this trip, I would be flying down to Atlanta, and the 15, 16 or so people that were on the trip with me were all non-smokers, save 2. But basically they were all non-smokers. So the way I looked at it is, I went to the doctor about 2 weeks prior to taking this trip and asked him for the Chantix and what he thought about it, and he said it was a good idea, tried it out, etc., etc. So my timeline was that by the time I got to go on this trip with all these non-smokers, in addition to flying, because anybody that's still a smoker knows flying is a freaking nightmare. you talk about a nick fit between the security, between the taxiing, between the actual flight. By the time you get off and on, on and then back off the airplane, and then get out of the airport in order to actually light up, it could be 5, 6, 8 hours. You can go nuts. So, with all that in mind, I've wanted to be able to be free of the nicotine, the nick fits, the cigarettes, all that stuff by the time I took this flight. And then I thought to myself, if I'm going to be surrounded by, 15 non-smokers, it'd be very easy for me to feed off them and be able to orient myself as to what they do instead of smoking. Say, after they're done eating, they just get right back in the limo and go to the next bar. Me and whoever else would be smoking with me would be holding up the show, quote unquote, while we smoked a cigarette. So I figured it would be a good idea to feed off their habits, or in this case, non-habits. So getting back to my experience with Chantix, what this drug does is it does not allow nicotine to reach the receptors in your brain that feed off it. In other words, that buzz you get, you're not going to get it anymore. But this drug allows you to wean yourself off that slowly in the way that it lets you smoke that first week. So the first 3 days or so, I would have, and I wasn't a heavy smoker. Let me say that right off the bat. Maybe 12 to 15 a day. None of this 2 packs and all that crazy stuff. Can't speak to that. I gotta say, by the 4th, 5th, 6th day, I'd be smoking a cigarette and all it would do was taste bad. So you start to get into the mindset where, while you're on this drug, if you smoke, it's not going to do you any good in the sense of giving you that buzz. So you start to disassociate yourself with the pleasure that comes with smoking a cigarette, because, you start to realize, if I smoke this, even though I'm allowed to the first week, it's not going to do me any good. Getting to the dosage. As I said, I've looked at a lot of other YouTubers and their experiences with the higher dosage and how it gave them, mood swings and or bad dreams and et cetera, and all that good stuff. What I experienced, because I consciously decided that I was only going to take this for about 3 weeks, if I could, because I just needed to get myself over the nicotine. Because as I said in the beginning of this video, that is what kept me from quitting to start with. So I, instead of taking 2 milligrams a day, I continued to take 0.5 milligram twice a day, where I just took the blue box and split the pill in half. Took one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And that was completely sufficient. My mood was fine. I didn't have the nick fit, the agitation, or any of that while I was on Chantix, which was good. Now again, I didn't take the full dose, and I think all these horror stories that you see about, people committing suicide, that kind of thing, once they up the dose or shortly thereafter, I think a lot of them are predisposed to depression, things like that. I'm making assumptions, but that's just my assumption. As I'm a pretty happy guy, I'm not really predisposed to that kind of stuff, thankfully. So I was okay. But again, the main reason that I didn't up the dose is because I didn't need it in terms of helping me stop smoking. Now, the one thing that I will say is that I took the blue box, for 2 weeks. So I was on Chantix for a total of